Good morning. Welcome to the hybrid in-person and live stream worship at Lincoln Park Presbyterian Church. Wherever you are this morning, we are so glad you're here. My name is Bruce Hunt. My pronouns are him and his. And I'm an elder of this justice-seeking, queer-affirming, and community-loving congregation. Our pastor, the Reverend Beth Brown, is in Michigan this morning to celebrate the life of one of our community who died, the fabulous Lucy Scher. Our hearts are with the Baker family as they celebrate their wife and mom. We are grateful to Carson Crochet, our summer intern, and to Rob Lindley, who are helping me lead this worship this morning, and to Chungers Kim, our music director, for sharing your gifts with us. A couple of words for safety. For all of you who are here in the sanctuary, there are bulletins in the back table near the hand sanitizer. Please make sure that there is at least one pew in between you and the people around you. Ideally, we'd like 8 to 10 feet in between us for now. We ask that you keep your mask on during worship this morning and to have it over your nose and mouth. Thank you for your help in trying to make sure everyone is safe. Today is our annual Pride Sunday worship. Normally, here in Chicago, we would be going on to march in the Pride Parade after worship. But this year, the parade is in early October. We wanted to be sure to have our Pride Sunday worship anyway. We are fortunate to have the Reverend Ananda Barkley, former Chicagoan, as our guest preacher. Reverend Barkley is now the pastor of Mission Bay Community Church in San Francisco, and she is preaching this morning on behalf of More Light Presbyterians. She's also preaching from a different text than is in your bulletin, but we'll clarify that in a few minutes. For those of you who are joining us by live stream, if you've not received the bulletin and hymns, we invite you to go to the home page of our website and look for the Sunday worship resources in the paragraph on that page, and click to get the bulletin and hymns. We'll not be doing the prayers of the people today, so if you have a joy or concern you want to share, please be sure to put it in the live chat on YouTube. There is one prayer we want to offer up, however, right now. Our friend and congregational member, Dre Williams, her grandmother died this weekend, and we hope you'll include her and the family in your prayers. Those of you with us in the sanctuary can write any of your prayer concerns on the cards in the pew racks and put them in the offering plate when you leave this morning. As you come to worship this morning, what will be your part in our Pride worship service? Are you coming with an awareness of what's going on currently with our LGBTQIA siblings, and especially our siblings of color? Is there more you would like to understand or know? How are you and how can you be using your voice to continue to advocate for full acceptance and inclusion of those who are queer and trans and gender non-binary? As we come to worship this morning, are we ready to hear that we are all beloved children of God? From this place of belovedness, we are called and equipped. Friends, I invite you to stand in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 2172, We Are Called.
shine with the joy and the love of our God. We are called to be light for the kingdom, to live in the freedom of the city of God. We are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Come, open your heart, show your mercy to all those in fear. We are called to be hope for the hopeless, so all hatred and hardness will be no more. We are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Sing, sing a new song. Sing of that great day when all will be one. God will reign, and we'll walk with each other as siblings and people united in love. We are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God.
Hello, good morning. Please join me in reading the psalm together. Blessed be the beloved, who daily bears up the Comforter who leads us to wholeness. The beloved calls us to new life and guides our feet away from darkness. Yes, the beloved will empower with love as we face the fears within. Love ever whispers, I will break down the walls of illusion. I will shatter the fears that bind, that you may walk in a new dawn, that you may dance with light hearts and spread peace throughout the earth. And as Bruce mentioned, our scripture today is slightly different than what is printed in your bulletin. So I will be reading from 2 Samuel, and Bruce will be reading from Mark. So 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1 is our first scripture reading from Samuel. And it says, after Saul's death, when David had returned from defeating the Amalekites, he stayed in Ziklag 2 days. And 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 17 through 27. Then David sang this funeral song for Saul and his son Jonathan. David ordered everyone in Judah to learn the song of the bow. Oh no, Israel, your prince lies dead on your heights. Look how the mighty warriors have fallen. Don't talk about it in Gath. Don't bring news of it to Ashkelon streets, or else the Philistines' daughters will rejoice. The daughters of the uncircumcised will celebrate. You hills of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain on you, and no fields yielding grain offerings, because it was there that the mighty warrior's shield was defiled, the shield of Saul, never again anointed with oil. Jonathan's bow never wavered from the blood of the slain, from the gore of the warriors. Never did Saul's sword return empty, Saul and Jonathan. so well loved, so dearly cherished. In their lives and in their deaths, they were never separated. They were faster than eagles, stronger than lions. Daughters of Israel, weep over Saul. He dressed you in crimson with jewels. He decorated your clothes with gold jewelry. Look how the mighty warriors have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies dead on your heights. I grieve for you, my brother Jonathan. You were so dear to me. Your love was more amazing to me than the love of women. Look how the mighty warriors have fallen. Look how the weapons of war have been destroyed.
And from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, beginning at verse 21. Jesus crossed the lake again, and on the other side, a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Jairus, one of the synagogue leaders, came forward. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded with Jesus, "My daughter is about to die. Please come and place your hands on her so that she can be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A swarm of people were following, crowding in on Jesus. A woman was there who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a lot under the care of many doctors and had spent everything she had without getting any better. In fact, she'd gotten worse. Because she had heard about Jesus, she came up to him behind him in the crowd and touched his clothes. She was thinking, if I can just touch his clothes, I'll be healed. Her bleeding stopped immediately, and she sensed in her body that her illness had been healed. At that very moment, Jesus recognized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "Don't you see the crowd pressing against you? Yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus looked around carefully to see who had done it. The woman, full of fear and trembling, came forward. Knowing what had happened to her, she fell down in front of Jesus and told him the whole truth. Jesus responded, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace, healed from your disease." While Jesus was still speaking with her, messengers came from the synagogue leader's house, saying to Jairus, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" But Jesus overheard their report and said to the synagogue leader, "Don't be afraid. Just keep trusting." Jesus didn't allow anyone to follow him except Peter and James and John, James' brother. They came to the synagogue leader's house, and he saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. Jesus went in and said to them, "What's all this commotion and crying about? The child isn't dead. She's only sleeping." They laughed at him, but he threw them all out. Then, taking the child's parents and his disciples with him, Jesus went to the room where the child was. Taking her hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Young woman, get up." Suddenly the young woman got up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. They were shocked. He gave them strict orders that no one should know what had happened. Then he told them to give her something to eat. The word of the Lord.
with those sad eyes. Don't be discouraged, oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all. The darkness inside can make you feel so small. Show me that smile again. Don't be unhappy, can't remember when I last saw you laughing. This world makes you crazy. You've taken all you can bear. Just call me up, 'cause I will always be there. I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors. That's why I love you. So don't be afraid. Just let them show your true colors. True colors. They're beautiful. I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors. That's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors. They're beautiful. Like a rainbow, like a rainbow. Oh, can't remember when I last saw you laughing. Oh, this world makes you crazy. Taken all you can bear. Just call me up, 'cause I will always be there. And I see your true colors shining through. Let me see those true colors. That's why we love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors. They're beautiful. Like a rainbow. Like a rainbow.
In our sacred text today, we find David in a dramatic scene, giving a monologue in the form of a eulogy for Saul, Jonathan, and Israel. David, this once shepherd boy, so beloved with a slingshot, a killer of giants, now a full-grown man, nakedly weeping, crying over the lost life of Saul, who persistently made assassination attempts on his life. David, in his vulnerable state, was fully emotionally present and lived in a culture that gave context and space to surrender to the normal emotions of bereavement. In his despair, David reveals his humanity as it cannot be hidden in his true grief. Nakedly weeping for his lost friend and partner in life, His love for Jonathan, as the Bible tells us, passed that of all women. He and Jonathan's love saved David's life from Saul's assassination attempts time and time again. He and Jonathan's love gave space for them to be fully accepted by one another just as they are. He and Jonathan's love grew David into adulthood, prepared him for leadership, and rooted him in the acceptance of himself. On this day of death, David well knew that it was also a death to a way of being that had come to him and Israel. It was an end of an era. Reflecting on this sacred text and this past year, both as a pastor and as a hospital chaplain fellow, we have come to realize that there are some things that need to die. There are eulogies that we have stored up within us, of experiences, of witnessing, deaths of people, of society, of ways that no longer serve us anymore. And I'm reminded, especially as queer folk who have known in particular the trauma of a virus, I'm reminded we do not simply move into change as spiritual people, but we transition through rituals that create space for our vulnerable emotions to express themselves. Queer people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and still today create spaces to express themselves, rituals for grief of those who we have lost too soon. Science tells us you cannot control your emotions any more than you can control a sneeze. And oftentimes things have to break down completely in order for transformation to occur. Things have to break down completely in order for transformation to occur. We want societal change. We say Black Lives Matter. We say stop Asian hate. We say y'all means all. Yet, there are some things in the culture, there are some ways of being in our culture and our society that have to die in order for Black lives to matter. There are some ways that have to die in order for Asian hate to actually stop. There's some things that have to die in order for queer, trans folks to be loved, for immigrants to have their rights, for poverty to be eliminated. There are some things that need eulogies. Similarly, as Christians, we talk about resurrections all the time, but in order to have a resurrection, we must have a death. And even if we use the beautiful metaphor of a butterfly, we can't flap our wings until we sit in that chrysalis state, the mushy, the icky, the gooey unknownness. The fully broken down is required in order for a butterfly to exist. What I'm trying to say, beloveds, is the aesthetics of lament, contrary to popular cultural belief, are not pretty. It is not neat. It is not tied in a bow and wrapped. It barely looks decent, and we struggle with its order. The beauty is in the emotional dams being released, given space to be held. The beauty is in the bare, naked breakdown. And the sacred is actually doing this work. Discipleship is actually doing our emotional, hard work. And I say hard work not because it has to be hard. I say hard work because emotional work is hard. Both practical and sacred transformations come from death. Death is a midwife to new life. Death creates space for what will be and puts the responsibility on the living to pass down the wisdom gained by the life of another. Let those who have queer ears hear. The house of Saul has become the house of David. Let those who have queer ears hear. We will kiki. but let us process our pain first. I am suggesting to us all that we learn how to collectively and individually lament from our brother David, using our vulnerability as he did as our emotional anchor, inviting the vastness of our complex humanity, otherwise known as our queerness, to lead in emotional and spiritual practices that give way to life. What I'm saying, friends, there's general wisdom in the queer community that everyone is a little bit queer. Bring your queerness to yourself. Come out of your closet. May the fullness of your humanity be celebrated, not just in mourning. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you with crimson and luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. Presbyterian Church, weep for all people who are experiencing the incredible losses due to COVID-19, we can no longer hide from the ways we have erased or removed ourselves from the realities of racism, heterosexism, ableism, poverty, and patriarchy. Presbyterian Church, weep for all people, for the destruction of the planet is the destruction of our very bodies, as the Bible tells us, made of dirt and dust. We all come from the same ancestral name, Adam, Adama, earth, dirt, human. Our stress and our emotions are heightened at this time because the witnessing destruction of the planet is not other to us. It is inextricably tied to us. May we be reminded that emotional labor is real, and it needs to be calculated into our daily personal and professional lives. Your pastor's emotional labor is real. Your session's emotional labor is real. Your emotional labor of being human is real and needs to be calculated in this capitalist economy that calculates none of it. Good and faithful Christians, own your emotions as signs and wonders of the spiritual work you are supposed to process, to become aware of. It is also, your emotional work is also your spiritual work to do. Do you get the story yet? The sermon is a eulogy for us all for that which needs to come to rest. Beloveds, I ask us today, what spiritual and emotional role does faith play for you in a time of mourning? When was the last time you have ever, if ever, cried naked before God? When was the last time we corporately confessed that we have not wept for the loss of our neighbor, and therefore the emotional evidence lay bare that we failed to truly love them? The Bible's response to humanity's unjust silence is the rocks will cry out on our behalf. It took a pandemic to reveal to us the cries of the rocks had become our lullaby, our night and our soundtrack during the day. Truth is, y'all, sometimes life is like the bottom of your favorite potato chip bag, stressful, depressing, and empty. Truth is, God is abundant and it will not always stay that way. The traumas we experience, big T and little t, can put us so far into ourselves that we can feel like we are alone, as if no one else has gone through. David wasn't the only person who tried to kill, who Saul tried to kill. David wasn't the only person with a hit out on his life. David wasn't the only person to hide all of who he was, who he loved. Do you see yourself reflected in this man? David was not the only person to have had a mostly chosen family raise him, spend his time with, because they accepted him for all of who he was. David was this odd shepherd boy out in the field, writing poetry, singing songs, dancing amongst the sheep under the stars, queer as can be, having a one-person kiki, living his best shepherd life. David, as a man, had behavior exemplified over and over again in the Bible as a hot mess, a dumpster fire, if you will. He was murderous and manipulative, like Saul, and like shout out to gay camp President Andrew Harding, or no, Warren G. Harding. David was handed a stable enough empire, but political policies were less than memorable. You don't remember Warren G. Harding's policies. We don't remember David's policies, but we do remember both of their canonical lust. David even killed the messenger who told him the news of Saul and Jonathan's death. Beloveds, our entire religious tradition is based off of a slain messenger. And yet David is one of the few characters in the Bible where the complexity of their humanity is unapologetically laid bare to deal and wrestle with. Reverend Ashley Dettar Burt challenges the observant Christian to be and lead better than David. And I'm reminded that sometimes stories are not told for the protagonist to be an idol, but rather for the protagonist's life to be rich lessons of what to do and what to not do. David is such a person. His life are canonical lessons of what to and what to not do. Knowing that trauma is presently reliving the same emotions of an imprinted experience of harm, I pray that we need not relive the traumatic patterns of leadership, of parenthood, partnership, friendship. I pray that we stop these generational sins through our own self-work, and that we hold each other in community for the ways in which we pass down these traumas corporately. So, like the caterpillar, the energy in our churches I've found as a pastor and a chaplain, the energy is such that we are full emotionally, that we have journeyed, we have absorbed, consumed as far and as much as we can at this stage in our lives, at this point in history. We find ourselves bursting with too much enough that only a different and new will do. So we're stuck. We join David in our sacred text today. We are stuck in a chrysalis stage. And like David and Israel in our sacred text, we are spiritually and emotionally called to cry out eulogies of that which must die as we wait for the breath of new life. So with courageous hearts, may we take and learn from the wisdom of Reverend Jess Cook. May we sit with our broken souls, they say. David invites us to normalize mourning, to normalize being naked, tired, broken, and bereaved. And I invite you on your own emotional work at this time to show up in your full queer self, straight identified or not, so that we might build emotional and spiritual resilience. That spiritual wisdom is hand in hand with emotional intelligence, that we sensitize and normalize our own emotions. But you must do this work with yourself first, because you can't give somebody what you don't have. Normalize your own emotions. This is an act of self-love, of self-knowledge and acceptance. It's a fulfillment of that second commandment. And when this is done, lean into the second half of the second commandment. Slowly begin to create emotionally competent space that invites the fullness and queerness of others, loving your neighbor as you love yourself, realizing that neighbor is not limited to human life. beloveds. May you replace the crimson and gold of Saul. May you replace the crimson and gold of David, of this church, of this country, with the spiritual tool of grief and lament to contribute to the healing and the renewal of our humanity, the mending of our relationships with self and neighbor, which includes all of God's creation. May you have a courageous heart to sit in this time of chrysalis, in this time of already not yet, in this time of becoming. For the sake of us all, I pray it so. Amen.
This is the time in the service when we reflect on the words we've heard, the eulogy we've heard, and I invite you to think about those words that troubled you, those words that comforted you, those words that were confusing, and push for understanding in this quiet time. This is also a time when we consider what kind of offering to be made. We don't, at this point, we are not circulating the offering plate in amongst the congregation. It's in the back of the sanctuary. And for those of you at home, there's a number of different ways you can make a contribution to the life and ministry of this congregation. Be imaginative in the way you do that. Some time for silence.
When we celebrate Pride Sunday, we are so aware of how queer people have suffered in and because of their bodies for so long. People who are unaware think queer people are only bodies and not full and whole human beings with so many wonderful and spectacular gifts. We also recognize the intersections with Black and brown people, people of Asian descent, and elderly people who are also suffering in and because of their bodies. So please listen to this blessing of our bodies. This blessing takes one look at you, and all it can say is holy. Holy hands, holy face, holy feet, holy everything in between. Holy even in pain, holy even when weary, in brokenness, holy, in shame, holy still. Holy in delight, holy in stress, holy when being born, holy when we lay it down at the hour of our death. So friend, open your eyes, hearts, for one moment. See what this blessing sees. This blessing that knows how you have been formed and knit together in wonder and in love. Welcome this blessing that folds its hands in prayer when it meets you. Receive this blessing that wants to kneel in reverence before you. You who are a temple, sanctuary, home for God in this world. Now I invite you to take a look at the back of your bulletins, or if you're online, you can pull it up on our website or in your email for some upcoming events that I want to bring your awareness to. So on Sunday, July 11th and 2 Sundays, we are having outside the church a welcome cookout for Cheryl, who is the new CEO for Lincoln Park Community Services downstairs. So we invite you to come to that. Also save the weekend of July 16th and 18th for the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Reverend Dr. Beth Brown, who is normally here. So we're going to be celebrating during worship on that weekend. So please put those in your calendars. And the last little event are the summer gatherings that are happening throughout the month of July. They're being hosted on different dates at different houses of the congregation, and there are links to register for that online and through the bulletin. If you have any questions, you can email me. My email's in the back of the bulletin. Now I please ask you all to stand and join in singing hymn number 2130, The Summons.
Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? Will you love the you hide, but I call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound in you and you in me? Lord, your summon echoes true when you but call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the In your company I'll go, where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow in you and you in me.
Today we're going to say together both the charge and the benediction. We're all in this together. A rainbow is not just a symphony of colors sent to calm the storm in our souls. It is a talk with God, a mysterious, miraculous conversation with God, heart to heart. The very heart of God saying to our hearts, I remember I am your God. Be my walking rainbows, so that the whole world will know to whom you belong. The mission of the church is to walk among the suffering and give, for we are covenant keepers, walking rainbows, bringing the hope of the good news to the oppressed. Amen.